It's the second time. Okay, you ready? Here we go. All right.
Shavua Tov, this is Joshua Rudolph. I want to thank Matan for hosting the series of shiurim today in memory of my father, Zichrono Livracha L'chaim Olamah, as well as my uncle and my grandparents on both sides. It's a tremendous zechut to be able to take part in perpetuating their names. I wanted to share a thought about Teshuvah that is based on no other than the parsha that we read just yesterday that I heard from my Rebbe Rav Solomon, and I think was probably particularly pertinent to the very first year that you'll be hearing today. We read about some punishments that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will mete out on Klal Yisrael in the case when Klal Yisrael veers away and worships Avodah Zarah. The end of the pasuk, after some of the great calamities that HaKadosh Baruch Hu warned about, says, "Halo al ki'ena lokai bekibi mitzaoni haraota eila." Behold, it seems that because there is a lack of God in our midst, in my midst, all of these tragedies happen to me. And so Rav Aaron has asked a very interesting question here. This seems like the very beginning of the seas of Teshuvah. Person realizes that there's a lack of spirituality in his own life, and it seems like he needs and understands that he has to seek out that spirituality one more time in order to get closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Why then does the very next pasuk continue about Nochi Haser Asir Panai Bayom Hahu? Why is HaKadosh Baruch Hu displaying Hester Panim, going further away from us, when it seems like this person is reacting in a sense that he wants to return, and he's planting the seeds for Teshuvah? Rav Soloveitchik explains very simply, a person who goes about Teshuvah or goes about life and facing tragedies by saying Halo ki'enu lokai bekibi mitzauni haraota eila is not going to be able to be successful in his Teshuvah. If he becomes so despondent and down and depressed that he can't even climb out from the situation that he's in, he has to first understand that there's a sense of self-love that he needs to have. After all, each person is created b'tzelem Elokim. And we know, obviously, that there is a special mitzvah of Avat Hashem, v'ahavta et Hashem Elokecha, v'chol levavcha. And so each person, just as he has an obligation to love Hashem, he has an obligation to love himself. He has to understand that he has a spark within him at all times that can be reignited, and those flames can lead to a greater sense of connection with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. And so a person has to first come to a realization that in order to do Teshuvah, he has to love himself, and then find that spirituality and be confident that he can find that spirituality within himself, and then be able to proceed along the path of Teshuvah. As I lead the tefillot on Yom Noraim this year, called Nidre and Musaf on Yom Kippur, inspired by the nusach that both my father and my uncle taught me, as well as the foundations that were set by both sets of grandparents in the path of Torah and in the path of understanding and appreciating Dveikut B'Hashem. I wish you all Shana Tova, a Gemar Chatima Tova, and I hope that you'll be inspired by the shiurim that you'll be hearing today. Thank you.
Yeah, but yeah, he's a yeah.
She was a pupil of yours.
Yeah. Yes, he did. It was a teacher and a student. Teacher, yes. They were Rudolph's, it's an extra well.
Okay, I think we're gonna start. Is that right?
That's that, yeah,
All our settings are set, and
I'm pretty sure.
it's all very technological. We've come a long way.
You could get it at your career.
Do you remember we actually used to do it live without all these things? Okay, so I hope we all had a meaningful Rosh Hashanah. We're now just a couple of days before Yom Kippur,
I want to put this in.
and
Just
sure.
hardwired, so it doesn't lose in the middle. So
We're trying to plug in the Bushwalk and plug into the hardwire.
yeah, let's see if it makes a difference. Oh, does that change anything?
I didn't say I wasn't paying attention.
Yeah, this Jabra thing. It's
I'm sure it worked better. Okay, so I hope you can all hear us, and you're going to share the Makorat to
Yes.
right? Brilliant. So this is the third in a three-part series, exploring Teshuvah tips and spiritual insights. And the first one explored Teshuvah tips and spiritual insight in terms of Aveirot Bein Adam L'Makom. The second, Aveirot Bein Adam L'Chavero, and this Aveirot Bein Adam L'Atzmo. And as I wrote in a WhatsApp group, I think this is the most important and the most misunderstood. In simple terms, for many years, I've heard plenty shiurim about the things I do wrong in terms of my relationship with God. And the Rambam is very explicit about the remedies I need to adopt in order to achieve Teshuvah Bein Adam L'Makom. Similarly too, however well I do or don't respond to the call to improve vis-a-vis Aveirot Bein Adam L'Chavero, I recognize I have that task, and I recognize that there's a Torah. There is a tradition of teaching, informing me how best to improve myself, what best to do in order to correct those sins, those transgressions, those ways in which I've hurt or wronged somebody else. The topic for today's conversation is, how do I relate to this third category of Aveirot Bein Adam L'Atzmo? Transgressions, sins that I've performed towards myself. And though we could say, well, what are those Aveirot? And different Mefarshim identify various Aveirot which are much more Aveirot Bein Adam L'Atzmo than others. I mean, jealousy in principle is Aveirot Bein Adam L'Atzmo. I don't necessarily need to hurt anybody, and yet what I'm doing is I'm tarnishing my soul. A lot of the feeling Aveirot, shall we say, sinner. A lack of V'ahavta kamocha can begin just in terms of oneself, let alone in terms of how we express it to others. But while we could detail the specific mitzvot that fall under this category, I think it's fair to assume that numerous mitzvot relate to how we relate to ourselves, according to Vilna Gaon. When we talk about the three duties of Torah, Avodah, Gminut, Chasadim, Torah relates to ourselves, how we make time for our own spiritual growth. And that's really a major question. To what extent are we focusing on our own growth? And to what extent have we let ourselves lie fallow, a bit like Shnat Shemitah? But rather than Shnat Shemitah, which is a mitzvah, I'm not aware that we're supposed to let ourselves not be grown deliberately. We're not supposed to give ourselves time to find ourselves and make ourselves great. So let's begin with our oft quoted but rarely studied teaching of Rav Tzadok HaKohen. It's an idea you may well have heard. It's an idea I've heard, but actually few of us have necessarily seen it. Cohen writes in Tzidkat HaTzadik, "Kashem shetzarech adam lahamin b'Hashem yitbarach, kach tzarich achar kach lahamin b'atzmo." The teaching which says, just as a person needs to believe in the Lord our God, so too afterwards they must believe in themselves. Meaning, once you're created and once you recognize you have a relationship with God, you also need not that you are like born overnight, quoting one of the final verses you said of your name. You're not like a growth in the field which after it dies, you're just thrown out. You need to believe, you need to know that your soul is from the source of life. And that God is pleased by us and is delighted by us and is engaged by us when we do God's work. So what Tzaddik Cohen is telling us, it isn't just a bumper sticker which you may have heard, just you need to believe in God, you need to believe in yourself, it's true. But why? It's because God believes in us, because we wouldn't exist otherwise. And the way that God believes in us is because God believes in what we do matters, otherwise we wouldn't exist. Now, God didn't just create us like the kikayon tree at the end of Sefer Yonah. One moment it's alive, one moment it's dead, and it really has no life force unto itself. Instead, we have choice, and we can choose to live a life of grandeur. And we need to believe that part of us is a piece of God. And as a result of that, everything that we do matters to the highest power in the universe. Everything that we do is hardwired to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And if you know that, if you realize that, then you will believe in yourself. Because God believes in you. This is the teaching of Tzaddik Cohen. It is fundamental. It is foundational. As I said, often quoted to already studied. We are not like a tree that's alive one day and dead the other. We are a being with the force of God's presence within ourselves. To believe in yourself. We're back. Now, I really, really, really want you to ponder this idea, to reflect on this idea.
No, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Give me a second. I'm sorry.
It's all this. You're working incredibly hard. I really appreciate it. 100%. Wait, does an echo?
Yeah, and I can't move it.
Okay, we'll figure it out.
Oh, okay, thanks. Okay, I figured out the echo.
However, even if we have heard this teaching of Rav Tzadok, it's possible that we've not contrasted it with a Mishnah. And here we have a Mishnah in Pirkei Avot, Perek Bet, Mishnah Daled, which seems to say the exact opposite. Hillel Omer, don't separate yourself from the community. And I'm interested in the next statement. Don't believe in yourself until the day you die. Don't believe in yourself.
Talk about your Yehovah or something like that.
1 second. His words are don't believe in yourself until the day you die. He says that. Doesn't use the word Yehovah. I mean, we can explain it. We're going to explain it. But the words are pretty explicit. Don't believe in yourself. And by the way, we have many more commentaries on Pirkei Avot than we have on Tziddik HaTzadik. And most of those commentaries say, yeah, you're right, you shouldn't. What we need to try and consider is, how does the teaching of Tzaddik Cohen, who was amply aware of Pirkei Avot, align with the teaching here by Hillel in Pirkei Avot? And if we explain it well, I believe it will give us a roadmap to understanding our duties towards ourselves and how to do Teshuvah in terms of Aveirot Bein Adam L'Atzmo. What does Hillel mean here? He means, as many of the commentaries explain, don't believe that you can't sin. Don't believe that there's any day until the last day on earth you can't stumble. Don't believe there isn't a moment when you can't fall. Don't think that you are beyond the possibility of transgression. That's how most commentaries explain Hillel. Don't believe in yourself, kind of in brackets, that you won't do Aveirot. That's why Rav Tzadok HaKohen's teachings is so important. He says, yeah, you're right. Don't believe that. Don't believe that somehow you're beyond sin. But you must also believe that you're capable of greatness. Do believe that you can be great. Do believe that you can rise. Do believe that Kadosh Baruch Hu cares. Do believe in that. It's as if Hillel is telling us the Sur Meirah component, right? Stay away from badness all the days of your life. Al tamin b'atzmacha yomotcha. Sur Meirah, be careful of sin. Sin that lies right there, as we see in the parish of Cain Be'evel. It lies there waiting, ready to pounce. Rav Tzadok says, Asay Tov. Know that you have the potential of greatness, of goodness, every moment and every day, and believe in it, and believe in yourself, and believe in your relationship with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. We could even go as far as to say that what Hillel is talking about is a mahalach of life. If you only were to focus on this teaching, obviously he said a lot more. What we may call Teshuvah Me'ira, living in a way that we should not stumble. Don't do this. Make sure you don't do Aveirot. That's Teshuvah Me'ira. It's Teshuvah from the position of worrying, of fear of failure. What is Rav Tzadok saying? He says we need to remember as well that there's a higher level. Teshuvah Me'ira. Teshuvah when we recognize how it's possible to succeed. And that itself is such an important lesson. We need to remember that we can succeed. We need to remember that we can be great. And by the way, these ideas are related. Meaning, why is it important that we start the shir with Rav Tzadok? Because if you don't know you can be great, you will fail. Who says so? Well, instead of bringing a variety of makorot, I thought I'd rely on Rav Zelig Pliskin in his brilliant book, Gateway to Happiness, who does exactly that. Have a look at source 3. He's put together some stunning sources. And he quotes here in his own way, summarizing it. He's himself a Parshan. He quotes now from the Nachlat Yosef based on the Gemara Sanhedrin. A person who realizes a greatness inherent in every person and hence their own greatness watches their behavior not to do anything that would be beneath their dignity of somebody who is elevated. Zoto merit, what does that mean? If you know you're great, you're not going to do Aveirot, because you're going to say a great person doesn't do stupid things like that. Godless leads to Roimamus. Godless leads to leading a higher level life. Believing in yourself leads you to believe that it will be below you to do things that aren't that kind of person who has that relationship with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. He summarizes the Rambam. One who considers himself inferior will not be careful with his behavior. You think yourself as nothing, then you'll behave as if you're nothing. That's foolish humility. As he explains, quoting the Meiri, if you consider yourself wicked, you'll be ready to do all kinds of negative things, will not try to acquire positive traits. Your negative attitude about yourself will keep you empty of virtues. If you give up on your spiritual potential, you've already done an Aveirot. You set your sights so low that all of a sudden those things that are demanded of people who are great become beyond your reach. He continues, quote Rabbeinu Yonah, one who wishes to elevate themselves must be aware of their own self-worth and recognize their stature and their ancestors' stature. An awareness of the greatness of one's ancestors gives one an incentive to reach their level of greatness. One feels embarrassed oneself, one's ancestors, to do anything improper. You'll say to yourself, I'm too great and important to allow myself to do this wrong. If a person is unaware of their value, it's easy for them to behave in a lowly manner. And then we'll stop here with Ryan or Carlin. If a person doesn't consider themselves an important person, they'll not free themselves from their negative habits, which tells us, Makara, beautifully, if you don't see yourself as being great, if you don't believe in yourself, you're already laying the foundation for failure. You're already being over an Aveirot Klapayich towards yourself. That's an Aveirot Bein Adam L'Atzmo. Because there is a direct correlation between how you see yourself and what you do as yourself. Yeah, you need to know that you can do Aveiros. But if you know that you are great, then you'll avoid them. If you do the Sur Meirah, you won't achieve greatness. You'll just sidestep certain things. But the Teshuvah Me'ara that I spoke about, it's Teshuvah coming from the point of not my love of myself only, but also God's love of myself. If I believe that God loves me and God cares for me, if I believe that I matter, then every deed I do, I'll do with a sense that it matters. So all of this is crucial. All of this is fundamental. If you don't believe in yourself as being somebody great, I sincerely believe you're committing an Aveirah. And in fact, you're likely to be gorel, cause many others. Because you'll say, well, somebody like me, there's no point in me trying to do X, Y, Z because I'm this kind of person. But maybe see yourself as being somebody different. Because the Kodesh Baruch Hu seems to do so. Kodesh Baruch Hu has a direct, hardwired connection with you. Believe in it. So this we begin with. Aveirot Bein Adam L'Atzmo, which are drawn from a lack of believing in ourselves, a lack of believing in God's relationship with us, a lack of understanding the concept of Dveikut. We spoke about that in our previous session, not just towards others, but towards ourselves and God, a lack of recognition that we truly can be great. And I'd like to make an argument that our Aveirot Bein Adam L'Atzmo are rooted in this failing, and that to overcome them, to forgive ourselves, and to aspire towards greatness, we need to see ourselves as being great. Let me move on, and you'll see here I've quoted a story. It's an oft-quoted story, but I'll tell you later why it's so important. I like to read it. Everyone likes a story. They're tired, it's been a busy week already. Here's a story you've probably heard, but found in Rabbi Krohn's The Maggid Speaks. It tells a story of the Netziv who himself told the story at the Sudat Hoda'ah, the festive meal that he held, having published his commentary on the She'iltot known as Ha'emek Sheila. And this is a unique commentary and beautiful, beautiful contribution to scholarship and understanding. And he then, during this meal, he said, why am I making this festive meal, having written this first sefer of mine? And he tells as follows. When I was a young child, I was once playing at home, and I heard my father crying. Here my mother had been talking in the kitchen, not a word I could hear them. Since I overheard them mention my name, I paid close attention to the rest of the conversation. My father said, I don't know how to handle the situation. I've tried every possible way to get her Shleib interested in learning. I've offered him prizes, but nothing seems to work. It was my fervent dream that he should become a Talmid Chacham. I guess we'll just have to train him as a Baal Malacha, as a craftsman. It says in Netziv, I was shaken by my father's pain and tears. When he finished talking, I ran and promised him that from then on I would devote my time to learning Torah. Said the Netziv, imagine for a moment where I'd be today had I not heard my father's anguish. I would have grown up to be a shoemaker, a tailor, or a carpenter. Coming from the family that I do, I'd have an honest business. And each night when I would come home from work, I probably would have looked into the Matthias, studied some Chumash, maybe even some in Yaakov. Even then would be the extent of my Torah learning. Every Yom Kippur, I would ask Hashem for forgiveness for my sins that I have committed that year. Before my death, I would have recited the video. But the heavenly court would have asked me why I hadn't written the Ha'emek Sheila. And that would be something that as a craftsman, I would never have imagined I was capable of doing. Yet the heavenly court would have been right, for indeed you see that I actually did write it. Therefore, the reason for this scene was twofold. First, to celebrate the completion of this work. And second, to express gratitude to Hashem. He led me on the path to fulfill the potential within me, which otherwise would have lain dormant forever. It's a remarkable story. And the question we all need to ask is, what is that potential laid dormant within us we leave untapped? Because we don't see ourselves as being possible for greatness. What are we? What could we be? Not necessarily in terms of publishing Sfarim, not necessarily in terms of title, but in terms of righteousness. Do we believe that we can be righteous? Do we believe that we can have an impact on this world? And if we don't, who on earth gave you that memo? Because Rav Tzadok makes it clear, it's not like he was machadish anything. From mass separation, we're going to be reading in Shul. HaKadosh Baruch Hu created humanity. He's in a relationship with humanity. We matter. So why don't we take ourselves seriously? And yes, we need to worry about doing Aveirot. We should also worry about not fulfilling our potential. And as Rabbi Zev Pliskin explains, and they are connected. And we do Aveirot because of our lack of appreciation of our greatness. And that's what we need to be thinking about. Not just Erev Yom Kippur, but every day. Think about our relationship with Kadosh Baruch Hu, and our relationship with others, and our relationship with ourselves. And asking ourselves, what more can I squeeze out of life? Because God's put it inside me. When I get to Shamayim after 120 years, Hashem's going to ask us questions. We won't know what he's talking about. We have this long list of what we could have done that we chose not to believe in for ourselves. We say, how about this project? How about this endeavor? And we'd say, I don't know what you're talking about. He says, I know. I know you don't know. That's the problem. I left all the signs for you. I gave you these gifts. I gave you these opportunities. I brought you to these places. Why didn't you use it? Why didn't you hear that call? I mentioned that this story is meaningful to me because it's from this book, The Maggid Speaks. And well, my family was traditionally weren't that observant. And this is the first Jewish book I ever got. I have a little inscription. I got it in 1991. That ages me. I've read it many times. And I remember the first time I read that story, age 16, or thereabouts, 15, 16. And I asked myself, so what are you going to do with this? And I don't know if I've done enough. I for sure have. You know, just recently, we just celebrated our 1,000th daf in Daf Yomi. Baruch Hashem, I've written a commentary on 1,000 daf in Daf Yomi. Some are not particularly impressive. Some are okay. But I don't think age 15, I would have thought that would be possible. But I would have been wrong. And maybe in a few more years' time, there could be something I can do. Maybe now I wouldn't believe to be possible, but I'd be wrong. And I can imagine going to Shamayim. Kadosh Baruch Hu is going to say, so where's your Perush on Shas? I'd say, what are you talking about? Must be mad. And Kadosh Baruch Hu isn't mad. We are. We lack self-belief. We don't take seriously how seriously God takes us. And it's not like it's a secret. We daven every day. We talk about our personal relationship with God. We believe that what we say matters. We believe that what we do matters. We come to Yom Kippur, we beat our chests and we say, oh, the things I've done wrong. Rav Tzadok says, yeah, there's another list of the things you could have done more. Naturally, that list counts for more. And unless you maximize your opportunities, you'll never know what that list is. Until the ultimate judgment day. And Baruch Hu showcases us, gives us this video of what we could have been, what we could have won. You know, there was a game show in England years ago called Bullseye. And if people won the game show, they won something. But if they didn't, they still said, this is what you could have won. You always felt bad for the people. Like, why show them? Come on. Because Baruch Hu shows us, this is what you could have done. And the people's faces on Bullseye are nothing compared to what we'll feel at that moment. And we'll have all the excuses in the world. And of course, Baruch Hu will know all those excuses and say, they're not enough. Because I gave you all those opportunities. Because I sowed the seeds. Because from one Jewish book can grow so much. From one story can grow so much inspiration. You see, what is the difference between Teshuvah Meira and Teshuvah Me'ava? Teshuvah Meira is fear of failure. So we're scared. And we daven to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and we say we're sorry. We're worried that we may do wrong. What is Teshuvah Me'ava? It's Teshuvah from the fear of success. I actually recently did an interview with Ilana Harris for her new book about Yonah. And she said, you know.
She's speaking in Beijing.
Okay, so I'll tell you that Ilana's interpretation of Sefer Yonah is he's not a prophet who's scared of failure. He's a prophet who's scared of success. There's a line from Marianne Williamson, which is quoted in the movie Coach Carter. You may have heard it. And I want to read it to you because it really, really speaks to this point. And she says as follows: our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There's nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our presence, automatically liberates others. Exquisite. We approach Yom Kippur with our greatest fear being stumbling, the fear of Al Tamim Batzmacha, So the Kodesh Baruch Hu will forgive us, and he'll say, okay, you're forgiven for the sins. If we approach Yom Kippur saying, of the past year, of the past years, I've overlooked that light. I've been scared for success. I've ignored the idea of believing in myself, even though you have a Kodesh Baruch Hu. And I recognize when I'll come to Shemaim, there's going to be a long list of things I could have done, I didn't, just like Netziv. And I realized because I didn't believe in myself, I did Aveirot because I thought I didn't need to rise to the challenge of greatness because I'm not great. Go to Yom Kippur and celebrate our relationship with Kodesh Baruch Hu. Through believing in ourselves, through seeing that light, Kodesh Baruch Hu says, we've got work to do together. Let's get going. We have that symbol of whiteness, of a clean slate. It's like a wedding day starting anew. Kodesh Baruch Hu says, let's go hand in hand. Let's begin this new chapter of our life, growing and building, and realizing who I always wanted you to be. Then this may sound all very cute and sweet, but I want to show you that these ideas are embedded in the Rambam, in Teshuvah. It's right there. Please look at page 3. We're going to go through 3 halachas. We're not needing to do any pilpulim. not needing to read deeply. We're not needing to look at different mafarshim. It's right there. The first halacha we're going to look at is Perek Gimel, halacha Daled, which begins by talking about the power of the shofar, how it's there to wake us up. What does it mean to wake up? To wake up to do teshuvah. Well, what kind of teshuvah? Teshuvah for fear of failure, a teshuvah from our fear of success. I believe it's the latter. Why? We don't need to read it all. Let's begin with the 5th line, where he says, Sarech kol adam. You see that bit there? Every person needs to shir etzmo, view themselves. When evaluating your year, you got to view yourself as if all your merits are, on one side of a scale, or your transgressions are another side of the scale, and they're equally balanced. He says, not just you. In fact, just think about the global merit of humanity. Half of them on one side, half of the other, exactly evenly balanced. Why? Because we can be that person. What's the Rambam saying? He's not saying he expects the whole world to come to righteousness. He says every one of us needs to see themselves as being righteous, and that person can be machmir not just their own life, but the whole world. We have within our power the ability to bring righteousness to the entire world. Every single one of us can be worthy of the words of Shlomo Melech saying, the Tzaddik Yesod Olam, the righteous person, is the foundation of the world. That's you. The Rambam doesn't write a disclaimer, I'm only talking to certain types of people, or certain people with certain learning backgrounds, or certain. This is to everybody, every single person. So call Adam, every person. Which means a foundational principle in basic Hilchos Teshuvah. I'll stand up for a second. A foundational principle in basic Hilchos Teshuvah is self-belief. The belief that you can change your destiny and the destiny of the world. And the failing to do that means you're part of the problem, not the solution. Because you didn't take that opportunity. Because every single one of us, we pass the button, it says somebody else's fault. And then what happens? The Rambam is teaching us something remarkable. The aside of Teshuvah is Amin Ba'atzmach, to believe in yourself. And not just to think you can be okay. Not just to think you can be nice and kind. That title tzaddik that we often attribute to only certain people, it can apply to every single one of us if we wanted to. It can apply to any single one. tales of tzaddikim that we used to read when we were young, we often think it's only people like Baal Shem Tov, only Kanievsky, certain types of people, okay, they get the label tzaddik. I'm just a Beinoni, I'm just an average person. Rambam says, Teshuvah isn't about having low expectations of yourself. Self-transformation and global transformation comes from believing. If you think that's too subtle, let's continue. Let's go to Halacha Aleph. Reshut l'chol adam netuna. Permission is given to every person. And Matzala Torah Torah Dech Tova V'Yot Tzaddik Arishut Yado. It couldn't be more explicit. Every single person has permission. Every single person has the opportunity to be a tzaddik. You can also be a Rasha. Push to Torah, hey Adam, every person can make that choice. We have to recognize that we can be remarkable.
Recording in progress.
We have to recognize that we can shine. There's so much that we can achieve in this world. Thank you so much. If you want to see it further, let's have a look at the Rambam, Perek Hey, Halacha Beis. Al Yavo b'machshavtecha davazeh she'amin tipshei u'mas ha'olam v'roiv gom le'bnei Yisrael she'akadosh baruch hu goyz ha'adam in tchilas b'riyato liyot tzadik u'rasha. Don't believe the nonsense that people say. You are fated to be a tzaddik or a rasha. Don't believe the rubbish, he says, the other people, the other nations say, that somehow it's in the stars that you'll be X or Y or Z, and there's nothing you can do about it. As he said earlier on in the previous halacha, an essential belief in Teshuvah is the ability to change, the ability to grow. Kol Adam, every person has the ability, has a capability to be as righteous as Moshe Rabbeinu. You may say, well, isn't that wrong? Don't we say in the Torah you can't be like Moshe Rabbeinu? No, the Torah says you can't have the same level of nevuah as Moshe Rabbeinu. Lo kam yisod navi. But tzaddik, you can be the same. You can be on that level of righteousness. Or you can be as wicked as Yerovim. Could he be more explicit? He tells us that we can affect our lives in the world. He tells us that we can choose to be a righteous being. He says every person has the ability to be like a Moshe, to be like a biblical figure. They're not so far that it's impossible. The presumption that to be as righteous as Moshe is impossible is a steer with the Rambam. I'm going with the Rambam. Says you can do that. So what stops us? What stops us is where we began. Stops us is we believe that Kadosh Baruch Hu doesn't believe that we can do it. Or we don't believe that Kadosh Baruch Hu believes that we can do it. Or we don't believe in ourselves, Bichlal. Because we think we're like that kikayon tree. We come and we go, we do what it can. And that's why, like unexplained, we read Yonah on Yom Kippur. We read a story of somebody who's scared of success. And Kadosh Baruch Hu nudges him to the point where he gets it. Unfortunately, a little bit late. We got there in the end. Yonah runs away from success. So do we. We are boreach. How much we run away from success. I'll give you an example. If you're staying on for the next 2 shiur, and there may not be much time to kind of process what we're saying now, but let's say there'll come a point afterwards, you're sitting at home or with friends, and you're processing this morning, and you maybe see the handouts of the shiur, and you remember the story of the Netziv, and you say to yourself for a moment, so can I do things great? How many of us will then say, nah, I'll just pass on, get on with it? How many of us will then make a plan? Make a plan and say, I have a bucket list of things I want to do. And I have almost a secret bucket list of things I thought I could do, but I've never believed in myself to try and do it. How many of us are prepared to try? That Rosh Hashanah night, I sat with my family. I asked my children, I said, I asked them 4 questions. I think, who would you like to spend more time with this year? What mitzvah would you like to improve? Now, what's on your bucket list for the coming year? There was something else, I can't remember. It's so beautiful to listen to my children. You know why? Because kids aren't so scared. You say, what's on your bucket list to an 11-year-old? She thinks anything. The sky's the limit. It's mussar to me. Because we're sometimes very foolish. And we believe the sky isn't the limit. We believe the limit is what I did yesterday is about as much as I can do tomorrow, and that's it. And to do teshuvah is to believe in yourself, is to believe in success, to see yourself as being great. And as I mentioned as well, quoting from Rabbi Pliskin, if you see yourself as being somebody great, you will avoid improper things, because great people don't do improper things. It's a really simple thing, okay? Because we have expectations of others, it then leads us to being for ourselves. So this is, I believe, the roadmap for us all in terms of Aveirot Bein Adam L'Atzmo. Yeah.
I just make a little point.
Sure.
I grew up in a household where we were taught that manivus is not self-debasement.
Right.
Because how can Moshe Rabbeinu be called the greatest son of, he knew what his worth was.
Right.
So I think this ties in very much. We have to realize that we are great, and it's not against being an anav or anything like that.
Absolutely beautiful debate. Torah said about this in Rabbi Pliskin, a whole chapter on this in terms of false humility. And we just heard before in the recording before the beautiful Dvar Torah that Dvar Torah Kamocha begins with a self-love, belief in yourself, a love of yourself, love of your value. And this is something we need to ponder. This is something we need to achieve. What's remarkable is so many people that I meet who are so gifted sometimes believe that they can't change. And yet the weird thing is sometimes people with seemingly little or fewer opportunities have that drive. It's as if I've never drawn the graph, but those with more opportunities have less self-belief, and those with less opportunities have more self-belief. It seems to happen that way. I'll tell you one final thing. We've gone through the material quite quickly, but I want to tell you one story, and then I'll end, I suppose. It will take questions. You may know that I try and help different people as what I call myself the virtual rabbi, for good or for bad. But I rarely talk about my clients. It's person people call me with different things. I'll tell you about a story of one of them without mentioning name or specific place. I got a call about a year and a bit ago from somebody somewhere in America, not a Jewish place. Somebody who goes to intermittently a Reform synagogue. They're not observant. They have strong ties to tradition. They're just living their life kind of almost nonchalantly. But they've started to follow various different kind of Torah writings. They felt a little bit of hunger, and somehow they stumbled on me, I don't know how. And this person, the week beforehand, had read some statistics about assimilation. They've got siblings, all of whom are now statistics savvy. They've just completely written themselves off the Jewish people. They've still got a tiny, tiny, tiny strand of connection. They were talking to a parent who's getting older. And they said, if I continue as things are, my children are just not going to know much about their Judaism. The parent said, yeah, well, it's up to you. Make your own choices. And this person called me. They said, I want to talk this through. And they said, would you agree with me that given my situation, they described it, there's a high likelihood of me assimilating? I said, yeah, I'd agree with you. Like, from what you've said, yeah, very, very high. They said, I thought so. I want to make changes.
How old is he?
It's a she, and she's in her late 30s. Mother, children. I said, yeah. They said, I want to make change. I said, great. It's a bit complicated because I have a family, but I found I was in contact with somebody, a Rebbetzin, who lives not so far from there. And I said, I want you to do me a very big favor. Can you be in contact with this person? Because she needs kind of a compliment. I can answer a few questions, but really she needs somebody there. This person did the big favor and said, yeah, sure. And since then, this lady has met with this other Rebbetzin on a number of occasions. She's grown in her Jewish practice. She's planning to move cities to go to live in a place which is from. She started going to various different classes and a whole bunch of other things. I was so blown away by this person. Because what did it take for them to believe that they could change? It took a statistic, an opportunity to talk to some random rabbi in the middle of nowhere. And I was able to be a shadchan for a couple of people. Just blown away because they're about to basically change much of their life because they believe that they can be a different type of Jew. And by the way, that's not the only person. 3 or 4 other people who've done very similar things in the past year. I'm jealous of those people. They're not jaded like many from people are. A person with limited opportunity recognizes they can be different and within a short period of time has done things about it. Many of us with abundant opportunities, hearing stories of the Netziv, reading the teachings of Tzaddik, what are we going to do about it? Are we going to believe that we're enough? When I was 15 or 16, had I not read that story, what would have been of me? I think I would have been a okay person, made Kiddush on Friday night, being honest, being whatever I was planning to be, some kind of teacher, and live my life. The ability to move trajectories relates both to the ability and opportunity to be inspired and the courage to make that change. But once you do, like Netziv writes, like I'm saying, I suppose, it's a remarkable thing how close it was. That couldn't have happened. It's remarkable. Meaning, I could have bought a different book and not read that story. Or could have just turned the page and not noticed it. Could have read it and said, that's for the great ones. But one thing I know, and one thing I've learned from different people, and especially from Rabbi Sachs, is that we should take God seriously. And therefore we should take our relationship with God seriously. And that's what Tzaddik is teaching us. If God believes in you, please believe in yourself. Please believe that everything that you do matters. Please believe that God sees in you something great. That your soul does and has a potential to shine so far and so greatly. I'll end with one final story. When I lived in England, I had a neighbor who lived a couple of roads away from me, a year above me. He wasn't an academic. He was an incredibly sweet person, Baal Chesed. A good guy, really good guy. But learning and him didn't really get on. So he davened beautifully, and incredibly respectful in shul, and say short divrei Torah. But at the end of the day, for him, he didn't see himself as being somebody who was involved in lamdas. He felt that to be just beyond him. And I remember I was sitting in his house. I said, you say you want to learn, but you don't know where to start. I said, there's a halach in the Shulchan Aruch of Shnai Mikra Echad Targum. I should do it, I don't. And, we like learning Chumash, let's learn it together. He said, great idea. So every morning after Shachrit, we had a Shnai Mikra Chavrusa. For about 2 years, a bit like that. And then I made Aliyah, and I didn't want to tell him what to do. But a few months later, I said to him, so how's it going? He says, well, I started a Chabura. I said, what do you mean you started a Chabura? He said, well, you left, and other people saw me learning, so I thought I might as well learn with them. I said, wow, that's amazing. This is not somebody who ever saw himself as being a Torah teacher. And then in lockdown, during Corona, we didn't have to travel to work. He said, well, I've got more time. So he started to give 2 more chaburas a day. In the height of it, he was giving 3 shiurim a day. There's somebody who, a few years beforehand, didn't believe he could learn, and for sure didn't believe he could teach. He was a close friend and unfortunately passed away just under a year ago. And what was amazing is he eventually found his potential. He began to believe in himself. Sometimes it happens when we're 20 or 30 or 40. Sometimes it doesn't happen at all. But oftentimes all it takes is a story like the Netziv, or a friend giving you a nudge. But once he believed in himself, he continued. He continued. It was a remarkable thing. And the energy, the Torah teaching that gave him, helped him weather some of the hardest of storms. Our Aveirot Bein Adam L'Atzmo don't come because we're bad. They come because we don't see ourselves as being as good as we can be. So yes, Hillel's right. Don't believe in yourself until the day you die. Know that every day you can do Aveiros. You can hurt people. You can disrespect Kodesh Baruch Hu. You can transgress things. You can steal by, not doing a whole bunch of things. Be wary. Alongside that, know to believe in yourself. Know that Kodesh Baruch Hu believes in you. And know to end with the Rambam. You can be a tzaddik. You can be a righteous person. You can be of the level of Moshe Rabbeinu. You can be machriya the whole world if you so wish. And where does it come from? Scene 5b, Rishus Kol Adam. You. It's right there. Because as of today, you can choose a different trajectory. Just like my friend, when I left, he said, you know what? I'm going to teach. When Corona came, he said, you know what? I'm going to teach more. When I read that story, I said, maybe I'll try and make some changes in my life. And that person I spoke to said, you know what? I don't want to be a statistic. So it's up to us to hear the call, the call to greatness, the call not from our inadequacy, but instead from our ability to shine, to grow. Let's not be honest. Let's not run away from greatness. Let's run towards it. When we stand here in Kippur and stand in front of Kodesh Baruch Hu, we should say to Kodesh Baruch Hu, I'm ready. I'm ready for the mission. Right? I'm ready for the mission. I'm ready to, maybe it is. I'm ready to fulfill whatever you want me to do. Say Hineni. That's what we learn in Torah. Kodesh Baruch Hu says, you ready for mission? Too often we say, I'm busy. It's not on my Google calendar. Like, say Hineni. Say, I'm ready. And what you achieve may well surprise other people. More significantly, may well surprise yourself. Wish you all a meaningful fast.
Anyone have any questions?
Questions.
Also, I thought it was so appropriate that what you're saying now, in light of the fact that tonight is Dodi's yard site. That she was also Soshim. That's what I meant. I meant Soshim. But tonight is her Soshim, and she was also someone who decided to change career paths and follow her calling, and accomplished a lot. So
you can also accomplish things not only in the what we call Torah. I mean, you can do things that
100%.
are also in Hashem that are important.
And you should know people like Tiferes Israel. He lists Tzadika Umas Olam who invented penicillin. He lists. He says.
Not only Torah.
Right. No, I'm saying correct. What I'm saying is every achievement is a wondrous achievement. People who, I work in the world of education, so I'm slightly blinkered 100%. 100%. And my brother's a doctor. He saves lives every day. It's a remarkable thing. It's a remarkable thing what a person can do with the gifts that they have. They need to know they have gifts, right?
It also,
I missed a quote. I would like to know where you quoted from. When you said that unleashing our greatness, but gives other people the kind of to see their potential. It wasn't one of your sources. It was between 4 and 5, but you were.
I quoted. So that's why I'll have to send you. You Google this. It's a oft-quoted teaching by a woman called Marianne Williamson from her book A Return to Love. And it's a quote that I heard in a movie once, but spoke to me, and I think it's a very stirring idea. The idea that our deepest fear is not that we're inadequate, that we are powerful beyond measure. And she speaks it from a faith perspective. I don't think she's Jewish, but the message is very much aligned with what we're saying. And I'm happy to give you this, or again, just go on Google, you'll find it. It's one of those oft-quoted things from this author.
I was at my son yesterday, and he had a book there. I think it's a relatively new book of the Rav Chaim Sabato called Pirkei Emunah. It's called something like Pratik.
Yeah, the red one.
Huh?
The red one.
Red,
Yeah.
right, it's red. And also the whole beginning is talking about this whole thing of the quote, "V'ahavta l'recha kamocha," when you can't lehov your friend if you don't love yourself. And but Tselem Elokim is kind of thing. It was very uplifting.
He's a very uplifting thinker.
Beautifully.
Of course. Any further thoughts? I don't know.
Melissa, can I say something? Hello, Rav Johnny.
that's two sides of the same coin.
Right.
Sure, and the very quick.
Did you? Right. You see, right? Sorry, I can hear you. Yes.
Hi, I wanted to say thank you, Rav Johnny, for the beautiful shir, and your words really touched a chord because I wasn't able to. I gave you my brother this morning to introduce the program. I wasn't able to be right on the spot. But when I think of your message of just looking inside ourselves and overcoming this fear and taking a step to do something, and I look at my father, Stanley Rudolph, Zichrono Livracha, and my uncle, Shelley Rudolph, Zichrono Livracha, and of course my grandparents, Goldie and Ralph Rudolph, and Morris and Dora Fader, Zichronam Livracha. And I almost feel like maybe we have a little bit of a generational block I think that maybe it's not, I don't know if it's our generation or the generations from us and our children, but I think we do run away from the potential that we have inside of us. I think, unfortunately, there are many messages that we get, that our children get, that kind of depress our confidence, that depress our feeling that, yes, I can. It's wonderful, as you said, to see young children where, you know, they haven't been pushed down. And, you know, may that always be the case. But I think the message that you gave, that certainly the Tzelem Elokim, and what my brother quoted from Rav Soloveitchik, that the Tzelem Elokim inside of us is given for a purpose. We have something. Everybody's got something, and everybody can take a step towards increasing their impact on the world and increasing thereby their connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So I really want to thank you for your very inspiring words, and thank you for everybody for participating in person, virtually. I'm sorry I can't be there with you this morning, and let's continue to be inspired. Gemar Chatima Tova.
Thank you.
Everybody who's on Zoom, you could stay on the same link for the next shiur. I'm just going to stop the recording, and then we'll start it again.